Episode number 126. We are all three on the same virtual meeting at the same time. It
It's
really
amazing.
can happen. It can
It
happen.
can happen.
I
And
am in a different continent today, though.
yeah, Brandon is in Egypt.
I
Wow.
am in Egypt.
There used to be like this morning show. It was like, where in the world is so and so? I think that's with Brandon. It's like you never know where in the world he's going to turn
I
up on.
was in Houston last week, and that didn't work out so well. But yeah,
Yeah. So, all right. Well, it's good to have all three of us back. We're going to talk about digital CEOs and what that means and how that can help the modern seller today. So I think that's going to be an interesting conversation. We were already chatting beforehand with some really good ideas there. Before we jump in, again, want to thank Brandon Fistbump for all their hard work on the show and all the production work. Do you guys have anything upcoming? Any cool webinars or anything that we should be talking about?
yeah. I've got a new like ebook training coming out. It's I think it's along what we're talking about today. It's how an invisible CEO can become visible in 1 hour or less using LinkedIn, and it's a playbook on how to do it. Very tactical. Been working on it this week actually while I'm here with my team. So that's coming out. And yeah, I've got to get. Well, what I do have is the workshops that we've been doing. That what we found is a lot of our clients that have shows and they're using the show content. Um, their messaging hasn't been as focused as it should be, and I believe that especially in the last 5 years, which tell me if you guys agree with me, since COVID to now, it seems like it's gone really quick, but that's been 5 years. And everything's changed. Our customers have changed a lot. The way they think, what they really want, what they're scared of. We came out of COVID, we came out of this virtual, this remote, this hybrid. Our competitors have changed what they're doing. And then we had AI. So much has changed in 5 years. The question is your messaging working? Are you still spot on with your messaging? And I would say for most of us, you're not. So we do have a messaging that creates customer conversations workshop. It's something that I've done in my consulting for a long time that we're bringing into Fist Bump. So if somebody's interested in that, I've got one workshop coming up in Atlanta on March 13th, but I have a virtual one coming up later in the month of March too. But you can go right now to brandonlee.me if you want to learn about that. And it's not just a workshop. I probably should call it something different. The workshop is kind of a brain dump and a brainstorm that creates the information we need. And then within about 2 weeks, my team, we work on it. We give you a messaging that creates customer conversations playbook. And Tom, you've helped me, get through some of that. And we got the plays that win. So you end up with very spot on messaging, email campaigns. If you wanted to do a show, some titles for the show and ideas for having guests and how to use the content. We take them through the entire hero journey, landing page copy. Like it's pretty robust amount of copy that you get, and it's got 100% money back guarantee. I mean, come on, can't lose.
Can't lose. Sounds like it's essential for the digital CEO in today's world. So let's jump in. I want to say welcome to Bob as
Aloha,
always.
Bob.
Aloha.
I just
And
booked summer vacation to Hawaii, so we'll
you
be
did.
saying aloha. Yeah.
All right.
Very nice.
We should have a special episode when you're drinking Mai Tais on the beach.
Wearing a lei.
That's right.
I think
It'll be special. I will
we got a Hawaii. I think we have a Hawaii trip coming up for Megan and I next January or February. She's got a retreat. She's got a trip with all of her high school girlfriends, and I've been invited that I can come early and do a little trip with her beforehand, and then she's going to send me home and stay with all of her high school girlfriends. So
Nice.
yeah, I get to be there for a little bit.
So, hey, Brandon, why don't you kick us off by talking about what you mean by the digital CEO, why that is important nowadays, and maybe even the priority of that compared to maybe other things that a CEO would typically, consider as part of their job.
Yeah, thanks for that. Let me set this up, guys, to kind of get my thoughts, and then I'm going to say my big, bold, controversial statement. How's that? Um, Carson, throughout your sales career, have you ever asked the CEO, and I know at Microsoft it's a little different, but throughout your career, did you ever ask the CEO to pop in on a meeting when you have prospects in town, or at a trade show, you asked the CEO to make sure that they came and joined you at least for a little bit with the prospect,
Absolutely.
or jumped on a call and joined it? Why do you do that?
It's a few things. One, it's the visibility, it's the face of the organization. It makes your client feel special, makes them feel important, like the important client that you want them to be. And furthermore, if you've got your extended team there, it enhances morale. Seeing your leader lead from the front has an exponential impact on your team and on your morale. It's fuel for whatever you're trying to do. It's like the WD-40 of advancing relationships.
And I would say that that is the exact use case for having a CEO who is consistently and strategically using LinkedIn to build a personal brand. That's it. It's the exact same thing. For a CEO who's resistant, and I know a lot of CEOs are resistant. I was resistant for a long time because I thought, oh, I don't need it, and all these other things. But it's it's not that we're trying to self promote. It's that we've got the mouthpiece of being the CEO. We're the only person that carries that title. And for what Carson just said, bringing them in helps create credibility and recognition, shows that you care, excites and motivates your team. That's really why CEOs do it. And here's my bold statement. And I've thought this for a while, and honestly, I think I've been a bit of a coward to really stand to it. But now I'm like, I think I just need to go all in on this. In 2025 and beyond, part of a CEO's job description should be having a strategic and consistent LinkedIn personal brand strategy as part of their job description. It's 2025, folks,
Yeah.
right? LinkedIn is not just for resumes. It's not just for people looking for jobs. It is a networking platform. And if you're not there leading your company, you shouldn't be leading a company in the 21st century.
I love it. I
So
mean,
go
you
ahead,
know,
Carson.
no, I was just going to say, well said. I think about as a seller, even, and just as a mere peon, how many CEOs I follow, and I'm even a lurker in some cases. I know we've talked in the past about the lurkers, and you can't really quantify the lurkers, but I follow a lot of CEOs. I'm inspired by the messaging of those CEOs, and it absolutely gravitates me toward those brands because of what that CEO stands for on the platform. They are building awareness. They are showcasing a winning culture. I can't tell you how much impact and influence that it can have, not only in the perspective. Think about how much money some of these organizations pay for like advertisement. This is free
Mhm.
advertisement. You've got your CEO out there showcasing the culture and the brand and everything that's great about it. It attracts talent, it attracts share, and you can't beat it. And I could not agree more.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be I'll kind of be the devil's advocate on some of this. Not that I don't disagree with you, Brandon, but I can
Like
Yeah.
kind of,
Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino, Devil's Advocate, or
yeah, maybe,
all
maybe,
right, I was trying
maybe.
to see if are
You
we
got the
doing a movie?
movie reference.
Yeah, are we doing
Right,
a movie reference?
that's right.
The Devil's Greatest Tricks. Yeah, he's
So I'm going to start with Bob's comment here. He's saying, some CEOs are not people person. The
Mhm.
title impresses the client, but you hope they don't say something that makes closing the deal more
Yeah.
difficult, right?
So, okay, so I will cave in a little bit on one area. if it's not the CEO because of personality or extreme fear or shyness or something, somebody from the C-suite needs to take on that evangelist role, face, however we want to say it. Somebody from the C-suite level needs to do that.
And I would even take it a step farther to say, hey, I'll call it out. I work for a gargantuan organization. Is it meaningful that my CEO's out there and has a strong presence on LinkedIn? Absolutely. I mean, it's inspiring. It reinvigorates. I came from a world years ago where we were traveling a lot more, and especially for annual kickoffs and things like that. And now there's such a virtual and hybrid element to that going back and getting in with 15,000 of my peers in one place at the same time isn't happening as commonplace. So seeing my CEO out there active on LinkedIn is huge for me. But I also see my chief commercial officer out there. I see our co-chair and president out there. I see our chief human resources officer, and so on and so forth. And they're out there regularly, consistently. Their messages are all unique, but they are evangelizing core components of what we stand for. And it's almost like for me, it's like a dream. It's like a pre-sale. They're going out and evangelizing all these amazing things that are differentiating our brand that help my potential buyer know about these things before I even try to create a relationship. So it's setting a lot of important groundwork, and it's enhancing the probability of my outreach being successful because of the great work that they're doing. That is, again, free.
Yeah, and I think the reality is people like to connect with, engage, read, feel a part of CEOs. So when CEOs are active, they're gonna get more people, not just from our team, but they will get competitors as well. But they're gonna get a lot of our buyers and people from the buyer companies following to pay attention because they are the CEO, and people care about what does the CEO think about, what are they saying, what are they talking about. And I think just to piggyback on top of that, I still believe we've got a couple years where LinkedIn organic still has a ton of play. Where I believe right now on Facebook or Instagram or even TikTok, you're going to have to pay to play. But for smaller companies, it is really like a best buy right now. It's like a great deal to invest in content around your CEO because the organic value of it is still prime.
Hey, and I want to welcome Anna from New Zealand.
There we go. Hey, Anna.
I think it might even be Thursday there. I don't know.
I would
Um,
imagine it is.
and Brandon, well, it's
Almost Thursday where I am, so it's
sure, yeah,
Thursday for
yeah,
her.
sure. So, all right, my next devil's advocate question, Carson, you can tell me if I'm really doing a good job with this as far as the movie role. So, as a CEO, let's say I'm willing to go out there and talk and put myself out there on LinkedIn. What should I be talking about? Am I talking about me? Am I talking about the company? Am I talking about the products? What am I doing? How do I present myself, and how do we use that as a positive and not a negative?
Is
Love the
that
question.
me?
Carson, why don't you guys start with
Yeah.
that?
No, hey, look, if you're a CEO that's out there, and we talked about the formula before, even for individual contributors on this show, I think there are some similarities. Um, planning out, and I go back to even like the Darren McKee episode where he talks about how you can space out your week. And there are, methodical elements. And I'm even thinking about, senior leaders in my organization that have posted over the years and what has really resonated. Frankly, knowing them as human beings first and foremost has been really helpful. Getting that glimpse into, what they're up to, how they're spending their time, their routines, their like their hobbies, their passions, their favorite sports teams, like those types of things I are a piece of interest. Um, Talking about the direction that we're going in. So you got to think anytime that you're a CEO and that you're making a post out on LinkedIn, there are two very distinct possible and probable audiences that you want to make sure you're reaching to. And one is potential clients, one is your employees. And so I've worked best as an individual contributor when my leadership is transparent and communicates. And there are internal channels and avenues to do that. But when you put it all out there for everyone to see, that's transparency. And if you're able to really play up, I see people that are, giving kudos and praise to people on their teams that are being promoted, or, there's opportunities from within, or they're, touting culture, or they're talking about great wins and successes that organization is having, or even better, the wins that those that they serve are having. When I see my leadership share stories about how an organization, a customer has done something transformative, serves humanity with our platform and something that they've been able to do because of our technology, that changes the game. It's great for the customer audience, but it's also great for employee morale because you feel like you're a part of something, you feel connected. And so when I'm thinking from a CEO lens, what's going to really resonate, what's going to really feed those audiences, it's all going to be about the things that show their humanity, but it's also going to be that really showcase what's our culture all about, what differentiates our organization. And I mean, coming from my world, every customer I work with, they've got a lot of options when it comes to who they can buy cloud from, right? I mean, that can be very commoditized. What matters and what's the difference maker is how can we lean in as a unique partner and collaborator in that space? What is the unique value that we can bring? And if your posts as a CEO are about that, those are the things that are going to make them stand out. The last thing I'll say is even just starting like provocative conversations and dialogue. And I'll throw it out, like what I love about Brandon's posts is on Friday, like, we rely on the dad joke, right? These unique flair elements that stand out. And so when I see these posts, I've got another CEO that I follow, and they post all about their organization's winning. And it's never about them. It's about people in their organization that are doing amazing things. And I love it. It gets me going just reading those posts. So, when you see these common themes, you as a person, you as a CEO, you can stand out, find your way of kind of doing that and relating to your audience and saying the things that are going to really resonate and standing out amidst all the noise.
That's good, Orson. Yeah. So I got a few things I want to say on this. As you were talking, I was thinking about a bunch of stuff. I think so. Number one, I believe that there's a lot of CEOs that use "I don't have time," and it's a resistance because there's a fear, and there's a fear that's layered in some misunderstandings. I think. I mean, I've got a blog article I've written. I don't think it's been published yet on the 5 myths CEOs believe about social media that's costing them millions. And those myths are that, social media is about self promotion. And there's some influencers out there. And if you look at some of the big name influencers, they are like, look at me, look at me. But that's not what we're talking about. This is about brand promotion through your voice, through your title. And you're the only person in the entire organization that has that title. And we've already talked about the value that everyone gives to that title. And so you're either going to show up or no one shows up. The other thing I think I hear, and I wrote in this article, is a lot of CEOs I talk to say, I don't have anything valuable to say. It is a little bit of a tap into imposter syndrome. But their experience, their vision, their industry insights, what they're thinking, what they're observing, sharing a conversation they had with somebody. They don't have to say who, just give the person's title and their industry and say, hey, this is what we talked about and this is why it was meaningful to them. They really are the source of a lot of very valuable information for their prospective buyers, for their current customers, for their team, for HR, for recruiting. They just don't realize how important that is. And then the third thing I want to say, based on Carson, what you were saying, is share this example when, and I've been using content with business owners to create conversations with prospective customers since 1998. Like, I've done this a very long time. And here's an example I was thinking of the other day. And this is in the print world. This is back in like 2004, 2005. We had a magazine that was called Swirl and Sip. It was about wine and food. and we personalized the cover for professional service providers. We had a lot of like lawyers and accountants primarily used that one, but the magazine became like their magazine that they shared with a database of people. Now, what does wine and food have to do with legal work? Absolutely freaking nothing. But that magazine dropping, a database of 200 to 300 people dropping in their mailbox every month and them looking through it, what happened? People remembered the lawyer. And then when they had a need or somebody, I mean, I always loved this one where they would get the referral because somebody was in someone's office. They were talking about something. They go, oh, wait a minute. And they grab the magazine and go, call this guy. And because, there's the lawyer on the cover and it's the lawyer's magazine. My point of that is we get so focused on do we have the right things to say that we forget in real life, live face-to-face networking, 95% of that conversation has nothing to do with business and what we know. It's just that initial get to know each other, feel them out. Do I like this person? Do they have good value? If they ask me for a meeting, would I say yes? That opportunity is abundant with LinkedIn, with social media, with content. And I think because we're, it's LinkedIn, it's business, it's content, we just bypass that. And I'd argue that if we bypass that stage, it's harder for us to get to the meeting stage.
Yeah, and if you're a CEO that isn't confident or comfortable in creating some of that content, first remember that there's a multitude of ways that you can create and put out content. But furthermore, get a team to help you to do this. I've done a lot of reading lately, especially Simon Sinek and Ryan Holiday. Simon Sinek really being able to talk about some of the strengths and skills that are inherent of some of the generational gaps. And because this generation has come up so prominently in an era where technology and AI savviness has been almost a norm, there's a lot of prominence in the workforce and the talent pool to be able to jump in and create and manage a brand and maintain it. And I think we're going to touch on this in this show, but when I even think about some of the content that I've created in the past, getting creative about that content. I took literally, this was an experiment. I found on a cassette tape, a sales speech that I'd given back in the year 2008. And I transcribed it with technology and turned it into an article. Had to change and update a few things, but it's my words from 17 years ago made new. Furthermore, presentations that I give internally, these transcripts, these recordings are there. I can turn that into an article, removing any of the internal references or customers, names, but keep the stories intact. CEOs, I think about a lot of CEOs that write articles, write memoirs, write books. You can take all of this content and create posts from it. What resonates with people is stories, whether it's stories about you and how you've come in and created and nurtured culture in your organization, but also how your organization is standing out and empowering and enabling other organizations to win as a result. Those things resonate. And these pieces of material, whether it's video or transcripts or articles that you've written or books, they can all be turned into so many individual pieces of content that could literally fill up years. And over time, you keep making deposits in these wells. If I go out and I Google myself today, there's thousands of pieces of material. That wasn't the case 15 years ago. But you make these deposits and this body of work grows and grows. And that is where you as a CEO can put yourself in a position of strength.
Yeah. And that's why, Tom, I don't know where you're going to go, but
I have a whole bunch of other yeah buts ready for you. So but
anyway,
that's right. That's what I got.
Let me throw this one out before you give us another yeah but. Over the last probably 3-4 years of working with companies, especially leaders, CEOs, sales leaders, and doing this, I think one of the reasons why I really, and we do other stuff, but I landed on the live show and podcast is our main recommendation for most prospects we talk to is the ease of use and the natural environment of it. Like they don't have to prepare a whole lot. Their experience, like they've already got it between their ears, their experience, their history, their knowledge, it's all there. They can show up 10 minutes before an episode, 5 minutes before an episode, review the agenda briefly, have a quick chat with a guest, and have a conversation that gets recorded. What we're getting is we're getting all their words, we're getting their thoughts. We've got them on video. We could create newsletter content out of it. We can create content, multiple blog articles out of it, a whole bunch of social content, written, video. Like we produce about 28 pieces of content out of every episode. But the best piece is we're getting the CEO and other hosts of the show, we're getting their voice, we're getting their words. It's one of the easiest ways to do it, in the way I think CEOs can do, lead with their content in less than an hour a week.
Yeah, that was my next but or around that area, right? So let's say I'm not the CEO of Microsoft. I'm a CEO of a early stage or medium stage company, right? How much time, I mean, do I need to be spending on doing LinkedIn? I have a few questions on this, right? That I think are probably going through people's head. Do I need to do other things, Brandon, like you're mentioning? Do I also need to be doing live shows and other content? Do I also need to be on Twitter and other social channels, right? How much time is this going to take,
Mhm.
or should it take out of my day or week to do this? And then, secondly, what kind of budget does this require? What kind of team do I need to have to act? Because I think one of the biggest, I heard an interview with Steve Jobs that right when blogs were coming out, and somebody asked him, "Why don't you blog?" And he said, "Because if I start blogging and then I stop for some reason, or I get busy or something else comes up," he goes, "I'm committed to it. And I don't want to be in a situation where I start and then I stop and then I look like I've quit on the
Mhm.
whole thing." So I know that was a lot of things all at once, but if I'm a CEO, I'm thinking about what is the time investment? What is the cost investment? And what am I committing to,
Mhm.
right? Over what time
I'm
period?
going to say, Tom, you're asking the questions in the wrong order, though. First and foremost, can data and a playbook or a path to show that there is an ROI from this investment? And then you can take a look at, okay, I can see that there's an ROI here. I we had Melody Kills, a customer of ours that I just happened to be. I'm in the Egypt office, and someone on our team was talking with her, and she was giving a testimonial that she's been with us for 4 months, and she's already 5x her annual expense. Like she hasn't even spent the annual budget with us, right? She spent with us for 4 months. She's 5x her annual fist bump expense and new realized revenue from this. So if a CEO can see a path to an ROI, then you can ask those questions. And I think there's some answers. Like I was saying before, I like the show format because it gets CEOs in a very natural and easy environment. They have a conversation. They don't have to prepare a whole lot. And from a 30-minute to 60-minute video of them having conversation, we can create all the content we need for the next week.
So what I'm hearing you say is start with the end in mind, right? Of what you're trying to accomplish
Yeah.
first and foremost. And I assume then I need to compare that against other things that I'm doing that may or may not have that same return, right? For
Mhm.
my company or my otherwise. And again, another but, and Brandon, it's not that that I'm doing this because I think I'm trying to spark
Yeah, no,
conversation
I appreciate it. I appreciate the questions.
is, um, isn't this, and Carson, I'm interested in your take, right? Because isn't this the job of marketing? Like, that's why I hire marketers. That's why I have a marketing team and all of that stuff to get ourselves out there, build our brand, do all of those types of things. Isn't that something they should be doing? Maybe I can be pulled in from here and there, but is this something that as the CEO, I should be doing consistently?
But now we're going to get into a philosophical conversation of marketing and sales and when they're on the same page and when they're not. And, I think the challenging element is, in an ideal world, sure. I mean, it is an area where marketing can lean in and help create some of this messaging. And, I've seen a lot of different iterations over the years of ways that, marketing can be restructured, pulled in a lot of different directions. Their KPIs change, and they don't align with what sales has or is doing, and they're on a different page from one another. I've also seen interesting iterations too of where projects have been spun up that I think are very valuable. Different customer facing types of events. Roundtables or fireside chats with executives. So even within that realm, there's a number of different ways that these things can play. I mean, even I've recently started tinkering with doing kind of fireside chat podcast style interviews with some of our partners, talking about wins and success stories that they're having with customers, and then putting that out to the information superhighway. I think there's a number of ways that these things can work together, but it also, like, we're challenging the norms here, right? Because you've got your sales over here, you've got your marketing over here. They're doing kind of their own thing. There's minimal to limited visibility to the C-suite, and everybody just kind of does what they're told by the step above. And so I think you do inherently, if you want to build this culture of having the CEO be out there, be the mouthpiece, lead from the front, you've also got to be able and willing to challenge some of these other maybe historical norms. And ideally, if you've got a leader that is able and willing to be out there and be that mouthpiece, you've got one that is more forward thinking and able to challenge some of those norms so that they can actually get people working together for the greater good of the organization, quelling some of the, the ego, quelling some of the, parts of the organization working in silos. Those are the things that have to be broken down in order for them to work well.
Yeah, and Tom, I would say that your question is a black and white either or. When you look at data, and I can't remember the reference. It was an article in Entrepreneur. They referenced a different research study, and I can't remember that. I can go find it, but the data point was 82% of people rated companies more trustworthy who had CEOs or C-suite senior executives very active on social media. So there's a lot of other data points like that I think would be compelling. And a lot of my clients, they're in that $5 million to $50 million range. So we're not talking like, Satya at Microsoft probably has a team of people that help make him look good. And they probably have a larger budget than a lot of my clients have from the entire year. But it's not, shouldn't marketing be doing this? It's like, what can we do in small periods of time to leverage our best asset, the CEO, and then equip marketing to do it better, to do things better, wider? And that's why I like the live show and podcast format, because it's easy. I'm just saying it's easy for CEOs. I mean, I've worked with CEOs, I've worked with senior leaders and pulling out their phones and trying to do thought leadership videos. And they'll do like 8 of them, delete them all, spend 40 minutes, and then go and never do it again. That the show, it's like you're just talking with people.
Yeah.
But we're getting your real thoughts, we're getting your real experience, we're getting your real stories, and we capture it and then allow marketing to take that 1 minute, really, really brilliant thing you said and turn it into a short. Take the 3 minutes that are around that and take that transcript and turn it into a blog article, reference it into our newsletter, and turn it into a LinkedIn newsletter article as well. And all of a sudden you've equipped marketing to better leverage the best asset they have, which is the voice, the thoughts, the person of the CEO.
And you think about the time commitments, right? I mean, like, think about the tangible and intangible outcomes that we get from different activities that we do as leaders in a given day. You don't always see immediate tangible return on every investment that you make. But, as a CEO, I mean, you're doing town hall meetings, most likely. You're probably doing some internal facing communications that are very, very important. It's a deposit, it's an investment that you're making in your people. And I see these time investments as very similar. You go live for an hour as a CEO or even half an hour as a CEO, and forego maybe a meeting that doesn't need to happen today, and you have this opportunity to speak in a platform where you have even 1,000 or several thousand followers or whatever it looks like, the opportunity to impact and influence and to have that brand recognition and familiarity, that investment is timeless. You're going to be able to keep making these deposits over time. 6 months, a year from now, you're going to look back and be blown away by um, the stockpile of influence that you built up. I look back. It's funny you mentioned something about like Steve Jobs not wanting to make a commitment to a blog, right? I mean, first off, you study anything that Apple's ever done. They've always kind of done things their own way, and they've earned the right to do that, right? I mean, their brand is global and it's a behemoth. Now, I look at even like my initial reluctance to call myself a podcast host back in the pandemic. I had all these people reaching out because I started publishing content, videos with people that I was meeting and different leaders I was talking to. And at the beginning, it was just like water cooler talk. It's like, man, I miss just sitting around talking about leadership and sales and culture with people. And then I realized I can do that with zero geographical barriers at any time in the world. I can publish something and post it. And I was getting people reaching out all over the place saying, I want to be on your podcast. And I'm like, I don't have a podcast. I don't want to have a podcast. I don't have time. I got a wife, 3 kids. I got a full-time gig. But when you start to realize the impact that can have, not just like as me, a lowly, mid-level manager, like the what that creates, you think about what a CEO can do with that kind of time and power and influence, and just even having a conversation. You don't want to talk on a podcast show or be interviewed. Like, you can stack the deck in your favor. I mean, I can easily arm somebody with questions that I want to be asked that bring out the best about my company. So there's a number of ways that you can arrive at the desired outcome, and to do it in a way that works with your schedule. You give maybe 30 minutes in a week to commit to doing something like this. You can make it work, and the dividends will be immense.
Yeah, I like the strategy approach that you took to that. I mean, we talk about we call it the episodes strategy, and there's different ways to set up an episode. Tom, you and Kevin, I really love the format, and I think there's a lot of benefit that came from the format that you guys use in your other show that I don't think you even realized at the time, but I call your other show a curated content strategy. And you want to tell everybody what you do with your other show and how it works?
Well, it's based on a newsletter. So we do an industry newsletter every week. The newsletter goes out on Thursday night. Friday morning, we get on and talk about the news that's in the newsletter and try and talk about, a little bit of the story behind the story, peel the onion, go behind what you just read in the article. And people seem to really like that because it gives them a way to keep up on the industry and what others are doing in an hour, hour and a half, which they'd have to go then figure out and do on their own. Right. So they appreciate that guidance and help.
So let me as the marketing strategist kind of behind the scene in my brain, what I'm hearing is, okay, so you went out and curated other people's content to create a newsletter.
Correct.
Now you send it out on Thursday night before you talk about it on Friday. Well, that
Correct.
means you've given everybody in your industry a really, really easy reason to give you their email address.
True. It's true.
You're
And the whitelist us too. Whitelist us.
Because they want it. Like, how many marketers right now are going, oh, our emails are going to spam. We're not getting open rates and all that. And you guys are here getting people going, ooh, send it to me. Right? So you curated it. And I know you guys don't do this, but I tell you should. Like, when you go and you start talking about the newsletter, you can tag all the authors from those articles, and you're giving them promotion, but you're also getting their network attracted to your brand into your newsletter, into your show,
Mhm.
right? And then you guys talk about these articles, and you guys have become like, I mean, before the news got to be so controversial and, kind of jaded and having their own opinions and agendas. But I would say back in like the 70s and 80s, the evening news anchors had a ton of credibility. Like they had all this credibility and they didn't create any content. They just read. They just read the words. But we gave them all this credibility, and you and Kevin are getting that type of credibility. And I've heard Kevin's stories, like he goes to trade shows now, and people come up and go, "Kevin," and they know him. Kevin has no idea who they are, but they've given him all this credibility because you guys simply curate other people's articles and then talk about what you think they mean every week.
Yeah, it's interesting. We got invited to a major conference in Washington D.C. in September, and rather than us having to pay, which you would normally do to go to a conference and have a booth or whatever, they're going to pay us to come and be the moderators for their panel sessions because they want to have like a kind of back and forth podcast format on their panel sessions that are there. So there's a lot of things that you can, for sure, that can come out of that
Yeah.
along the way. And yes, this was sort of, it was like you, Carson. This was a bit of the accidental podcast. It wasn't something that was necessarily planned. It was just like, hey, let's go share whatever, let's go share this. What the hell? What do we have to lose? Right. There wasn't a lot of strategic thought that went into it um, along the way, which I'm not sure was a good or a bad thing, Brandon, but there wasn't a lot of strategic
It was
thought
both. But the episode strategy, Carson, to what you were saying is you can have a guest, and we call it, one of the guests is a big dog. We've used it on our show. We've gone out, we've got Mike Weinberg, we've asked Anthony Iannarino, the Larry Levines, the Amy Francos. We're still working on Gittimer. He's close, and then something happens. But right, with the big dog strategy, we're actually giving them a platform to expand their personal brands, but we're also leveraging their popularity to get more people to come to our network. And I like to share this example. The first time Larry Levine came on our show, Chris Dunn from Blue Hive Exhibits was part of Larry's coaching program. When he saw that Larry was going to be on our show, he came and watched our show. And then he started following me. And now Blue Hive is a fist bump client, and we manage, produce, and promote their live show and podcast that Chris is the host of. Like that big dog strategy works really well. You could bring your own customers on as guests and let them tell their story, which is promoting you, but without you having to promote yourself. And like today, we have no guests, but we're talking about things that are, I mean, this show obviously is very important to me with Fist Bump, but we get to talk about it very specifically and add value to educate people. And for everyone watching, you're going to see snippets and shorts and newsletters and things from this episode over the next week, because that's exactly what we do. So you've got all these different strategies that you can use with episodes to make it super easy for a CEO or other members of the C-suite or sales leaders to give an hour, 45 minutes a week, and know that there's this whole system in place that's going to help them grow their reputation, meet more people, help sales get more conversations, help HR recruit better. Lots and lots of value from 45 minutes a week.
So I think what I'm hearing both of you say, and I certainly know this myself, but I want to make sure we reiterate it, is if you're going to go into this, there's kind of a cultural and a mindset shift that has to happen. Maybe not a shift, but a commitment, right? It's a cultural and a mindset commitment to this. And inherently that creates a bit of a strategic mindset or a strategic commitment. Is that true? I mean, I'd ask both of you, do you think that's a critical element to kind of have that mindset and then let that mindset carry through the organization and have the organization kind of channeling into that versus just trying to go do something tactically and cross your fingers and hoping for a result?
Yeah, my answer is brief. It's short answer is yes. I mean, the playing field's changed. You have to go in eyes wide open. You know, the ways that you've done it up to this point is kind of this. No matter what, no matter how big your tunnel is, it's tunnel vision. And there's new ways, there's new audiences, there's new ways of touching those audiences that's out there. And so to not do those things, to not pursue those things, you're in essence making the conscious decision to cut off all of that potential audience and all those ways of touching those potential clients and amplifying your message internal to your organization and also external, because it's very real. It's vibrant. That community is active. And if you ever doubt that and you're a CEO, go out and look at, your competitors and their CEOs who maybe are vocal out there, and the comments that they're getting and the rah rah pump me up, things that their employees are saying in the comments, or the people that they're connected with that are customers you'd like to have. There's a lot that you can do to go out there and view the new landscape. So yeah, I mean, I encourage you to go into the situation eyes wide open, and don't just not lean in because it's uncomfortable or it's new muscle or because it's unknown. There's a lot of data and intel that's out there that can help you have this strategy and do it well. And I mean, frankly, just call Brandon.
Yeah.
I think two things that made me think of, and thank you for that, Carson. But, it was probably 9 months ago plus ish. I was speaking to a CEO around our age, probably a little, 60s ish. And he's like, Brandon, you're a LinkedIn guy. I'm like, okay. He's like, come here, explain this to me. Okay. He's like, there's this kid who's in my industry. I'm going to pause there because that's a really important statement. There's this kid who's in my industry. So this guy's got, 35 plus years experience. And he pulls up and he says, basically, I'll give you the short version. This kid is crushing it on LinkedIn. He's like, he's in my industry, but he's getting so many more people talking with him, engaging with him than I get. What's going on? Well, number one, this kid has learned how to use modern platforms to network. And you think just because you have 35 years experience that everybody should come running over and kneel down and listen to every word you said. And I don't mean to sound like a jerk about it, but it's just not going to happen. But what this kid learned how to do was talk with people. He brought his humanity into it, so people felt like they knew him. And this guy had posts that were getting 25, 30 comments. And the CEO I was talking to would get like 3 or 4 likes and 1 or 2 comments that were usually people on his team. And he was bringing it to me like there was this big injustice that was taking place because it's his industry. I got more experience than he does. And I said, man, you got to look at it. You got to look at it differently, because unless you figure out what this kid knows, you're going to get buried, because they're not going to care as much about your experience if he's building relationships and creating conversations with them.
Tell him to hire the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, offline, I'll tell you who it was.
I take it we know this person.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think, the other piece, and I think for a lot of our clients in that, $5 million to $50 million range, I ask them, we did the episode we call Level Up LinkedIn Fast. And it's because I was getting a lot of calls from people to go, man, at the end of last year, we got to level up LinkedIn fast. What do we do? Big first question asked, what's going on? There's a pain. More and more of them are starting to experience that pain, that they're just typical cold outreach. They're cold emails. They're, hey, we do this, let's talk. It's just not producing a return. So they're now getting desperate to figure out how to do something else. And one of the value propositions I think of doing like a live show is that not only it's 45 minutes, you're getting the CEO out there, you're creating social content, but you also can use that to create content for all your other outreach. So instead of your emails all sounding the same, hey, we do this, you want to talk, you can say, hey, here's a short from an episode that talked about these things, or we had, this person is a guest and they talked about these things. Here's the timestamps of a 45-minute show. Find what what's valuable to you and go check it out. Like, you can immediately become a giver of information, making deposits instead of your one trick pony of, want to talk? I'm going to sell you something. I mean, that alone is worth the small investment, in my opinion, of doing it. But they've got to figure out if the pain, is the pain going to cause me to finally be willing to take a look at something different? And then there's options. But it's funny is the three of us all haphazardly started shows, and here we are years later going, wow, this has been one of the coolest things. We didn't have a plan. We just started talking.
So, Brandon, do you suggest that they have a plan? That somebody is doing this when they start off?
I think years later, yeah, now there's people like, I mean, they could tap into any one of us and we could give them a quick, breakdown of how to use it with purpose. Obviously, and thank you, Carson, they can come learn from Fist Bump how to do it in an hour a week or less and have a purpose. But even if they just tap into their marketing people and say, you know what, I would say, have a strategy for your show name that captures your customers' attention, have topics that are going to capture your customers' attention, and then plan on using the recording of the show and the transcripts to create a few pieces of content. Like, even if you just start there, I guarantee if a CEO is willing to do a 45-minute show a week, your marketer who's stressed out about how to create content would love you for it.
I've also seen so many leaders in like my organization that'll do fireside chats with customers and do that in front of employees. Why in the world wouldn't you turn that into some type of external facing show where you could find a customer that is willing to come on and speak, and you talk to them, you interview them about the experience and make them the star and put that out there. I mean, these things that, like, again, I go back to the time investment. Like, these are things that you're investing time in anyway, right? So
Yeah.
do it in a way that has maximum potential.
Well, you guys have convinced me.
No more yeah buts.
No, I don't have any more yeah buts. I think that the digital CEO is, and all the things that go with that we've just talked about, it certainly seems relatively high reward and relatively low risk to the potential reward, I guess, that can come out of it. And I think there's also a big lost opportunity cost for doing nothing, right? Every day that you do it, there's that lost opportunity.
I would push back a little to play the other side now.
Are you being yeah, but? Are you saying yeah, but?
Well, I just think I want to be realistic, and this is over hundreds of conversations with CEOs or CROs or just business owners of $5 to $10 million companies. The fear is real, right? I think I started jotting down, and I ended up creating this ebook on the myths that CEOs believe, and how to get over it, because it's real. I mean, it's really real. They've spent their career building up a network and a reputation, and then they'll see on the news or Twitter or something like that somebody got canceled because they said something stupid, and they go way to the extreme, go, oh my gosh, like, just don't say anything stupid. Like, it's like we're either a boardroom or a cocktail party or something. You're very aware to not say something stupid. But I think there's some really real fear that CEOs need help, and I think that's where we can help them with their fear, or find a community of other CEOs that are all going to do this together, and have some support systems in place. But I think the bottom line is, if you're a CEO of a company and you're not figuring this out, it's going to cost you millions in unrealized money, but it's also could cost you millions in just lost revenue because if your competitor CEO starts becoming a well-known reputation and character, if you will, and they're going to crush you.
Hey, before we wrap up here, I wanted to mention one other sort of side effect hack, if you want to call it that, that I was shocked about. We recently took our Around the Horn episodes and took the whole transcript and put them on our website. So we create a page for every episode and there's a transcript and stuff on there. What I noticed with some of the new AI search is the AI search is picking up the things from these transcripts and playing them back as part of what's coming out of the AI when our company is mentioned, right? So it's kind of a new AI SEO hack that most people don't think about because it's not keyword based. It's looking at all of that content that's there and using that in its response when it's, and I didn't expect it. It just happened. I've noticed recently we've been doing it about most of the year, a couple months to get it there. So another
Wow.
side effect, another SEO side effect, or maybe not AI or engine side effect. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well,
That's you got my wheels turning on that.
okay. Yeah, but it's another thing that people, it's like, that's free content, right? To put out there
Yeah.
to kind of loading those things. All right. Well, this has been great to get everybody back. Hopefully we can do this for a few more weeks as we go forward. Any
Hopefully.
final thoughts before we wrap up here?
Yeah, just one quick one. As I think about this and I, think about the film The Devil's Advocate, I wanted to pick a quote that really kind of sums it all up. And, of course, one of the central characters is the devil himself. So obviously this line is kind of drenched with conceit and vanity, which is his favorite sin. But he says, you don't cultivate power overnight, or you don't develop power overnight, you cultivate it. And so when I think about developing a brand as a CEO, I think about, the things that we talk about on this show that you can control. You can control the quality of your message and who it's going to, and then the types of platforms, the quantity of outreach, the types of mediums that you're investing in, but also just that consistency of execution over time. You've really got to commit to a process. That's what I loved about what Brandon said about, in hindsight, I think it makes sense to have a strategy, but you also have to be adaptable with that strategy. You can't just stay on a path and say, well, hey, this isn't working. Or when things change, like new AI solutions and tools and ways that things can be done that make it more expedient or can spruce up your message, you've got to embrace and explore these different things. So you've got to be adaptable in your process. But that really resonated with me is that you can't cultivate reputation and power overnight.
That was good. Good stuff, Carson. Hey, I liked our conversation today, guys. Thanks so much.
Always.
Yeah. Brandon, you going to go eat dinner at 11 o'clock?
I'm going to go eat dinner at midnight.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Amazing.
have fun. Carson, we haven't had you here to wrap us up in
No.
weeks. We don't even know how to wrap up anymore. So
Am I supposed to do something? Say something?
yeah, you're
Yeah.
supposed to say something. Yeah.
We're so used to you doing it, Carson, that when it's just us, we go, "Oh, bye, everybody." Like we were so uncomfortable.
Have no fear. Carson is here. Thank you, everyone, for being on. Gentlemen, always a pleasure to see you guys. Thanks for all the helpful morsels and advice and helping to make our CEOs more impactful and influential. And until next time, happy modern selling.